Hey guys, welcome back into Legacy. I do apologize for any audio issues I have. I kind of sort of had a dog eat my freaking microphone. So I'm having to use a temporary setup for now until I can replace the mic. I'm looking around the house for my other mics and I can't seem to find them. And it's actually making me a little upset, to be honest with you. But today we're going to cover Dragon Warrior Professions, the Elementalist. Give you an overview of the Elementalist, what it can do, and hopefully by the end of this you'll have a better idea of the class. So, just jumping into it, what is the Elementalist? The Elementalist is a rune practitioner, and he draws directly from elemental power. Um, he's a very trickstery type character, and he relies on his willpower and the powers of nature to cast his spells. So he is very much he's more defined than the sorcerer in that he is going to draw his power from a very specific source, and I'll explain that in a minute. It's right here. So we drunk there. And there is one kind of awkward type of elementalist called the Darkness Elementalist. Not going to delve too deep into what they do, but I am gonna cover what they cover at the end of the section here for you guys, so you know. Um, So, and in fact, they're described as outcasts. Darkness Elementalists are described as outcasts from society, and they're reviled. So, just so you know, Darkness Elementalists are not good people. They're kind of like necromancers. Um, Now, game stuff. Um, to become an Elementalist, you have to have at least a 9 in both intelligence and psychic talent. Um, Humans become Elementalists. Technically, you can play other races in Dragon Warriors again. It assumes human because everyone is human. Elves can also become Elementalists, although dwarves are precluded because they don't cast magic. Okay, that's pretty simple stuff. That is just sorry, I'm making sure that doesn't go back off. Um, that's the basics of becoming an Elementalist. What is Elementalism, and what do they get? Elementalist. There are 5 elements in Dragon Warriors: fire, air, water, earth, and darkness. The way that you choose these are you're going to choose one that's going to be primary, and you're going to choose one that is going to be, or 2 that are going to be secondary to it. Uh, Darkness can never be a secondary element and must be your primary element. Otherwise, you cannot basically. There is a little. I didn't grab it. There is a little drawing here, but the reason I didn't grab it is because it actually is offset into the text, and it messes. It's a little messed up in layout. This is one of the errors in the book. But what it is you can you cannot take something that's the opposite of the element you take, basically your primary element. So if you take fire, you can't take water. If you take air, you can't take earth. But if you take fire, you can take earth as a secondary and air as a secondary. So generally speaking, um, you can be both a fire and a water elementalist, but you have to be an earth elementalist primarily. Um, so that's the way the elements work. Uh, they do uh, they do cast using mana points, magic points. However, they get a number of magic points in each element they have. Let me get to. I totally completely forgot to go look at that page number because I'm stupid. I can tell you how that breaks down. Give me just a second, guys. I'm stupid. I forgot to grab that page number. Okay, use the magic. Oh, hang on. Okay, so Elementalist, they get 7 magic points towards each of your elemental categories. So your primary category is going to have a certain one number, and your second and third categories are going to have a separate number of magic points to cast from. So, for example, you can. Let me do this real quick for you. Sorry, I'm grabbing something for you guys. It's easier just to show it to you than it is to explain it. I'm gonna make an image out of this. 2 shakes of onion spell. Sorry, guys, I should have done this ahead of time. I didn't think about this, and Two shapes of lamb. So one of the great things about Restream, I can add stuff to it as quickly as I need. Just 2 more seconds, guys. Seriously, I apologize. I did not think this through. Okay. Here you go. Okay, this is the MPs, so you can see what I'm talking about. So at first level, you get 3 MP in your primary category. You do gain 1 in each of the second and third categories, which is going to limit the number of secondary and tertiary spells you can cast, generally to 1 per day of first level. Each of these categories are first level, whereas you can cast 3 first level spells in your primary category. And then you can see there is actually a formula to it. Pretty much you're going to gain 1 MP in your secondary and tertiary categories per level, per rank, and you're going to gain 3 in your primary category. So that's your magic points per rank. Like I said, I'll leave that there for just a second so you guys can see that. I'm going to get back to where I was just at. Okay. So as far as casting elemental spells are going to be what you expect them to be, guys. Fireballs, water bolts, earthquakes, that kind of stuff. That is going to be your elemental spell list. Their spells can be typically kind of potent, but because they have fewer MP per category than a sorcerer would get overall, they do tend to not be able to cast as much. That's going to be limited. That is a downside to the Elementalist. So keep that in mind if you're thinking about playing an Elementalist in a game. Thank you for watching these, Ear Trumpet Man. I'm glad somebody watches. Sometimes I feel like I don't get much out of these. All that being said, though, that's the basics of Elementalist spell casting. Like I said, I'm not gonna pull up their full spell list and everything, but that is basics of Elementalist. Elementalists can wear armor, though it is suggested not to wear heavy armors because they do require arcane gestures to cast spells. So generally, Elementalists stick to things like padded armors, and you do take the penalties from wearing armor to spell casting as an Elementalist if you wear heavy armor. So not impossible. Just know you're going to take the penalties through the nose if you go in and do that. Okay. I just went over spellcasting. Another cool thing that they get, they gain the ability to exude the raw power of the elements they've mastered. So even if they're incapable of casting a spell or less effective at it because they're paralyzed, wearing armor, or whatever, they do gain the ability to surge out power. And there are some sample things you can do with it here. You can either do it as a direct damage spell, or you can do some of these uses of raw elemental power that are on this table. These are just examples of things you can do. When you do use it to do magic, it does an indirect attack with a speed of 10 plus the magic points expended. So you can choose how many magic points to dump into this. A range of 10 meters per the magic point expended. So again, pretty simple math. And then 2d6 per magic points expended in damage. So the example they use here is using 3 magic points would be 30 meters away at a speed of 13, dealing 66 damage. Okay, so pretty simple math. And like I said, you can do it for other things. For example, you can see on the table there, with fire, you can use 1 MP to light a candle across a room. Air, you can blow out campfires. Earth, you can fill in or disturb, holes in the ground, cause earthquakes, that kind of stuff, cause minor cave-ins, that kind of stuff. The more magic points you dump, of course, the more spectacular you're going to get out of that. I honestly, I wish I could have had the old paperbacks, but I discovered this game when Serpent King Games put it out. And I feel bad because this is a wonderful game, and I wish I had known about it in the 90s. But yeah, so that is use of raw elemental power. And again, guys, it's really cool concept because it gives you some options when you don't have anything else you can do or you don't know what else to do. There's always something an elementalist can do. Uh, Furthermore, elementalists do gain elemental resistances. So the element that you are attuned to primarily grants you a +4 magical defense and evasion against that element as determined by the GM. So any directed spell that would use, say, fire, like a fireball, against a fire elementalist is going to get a +4 defense against it. Um, Period. Or I believe fireball actually uses evasion because you're able to get out of the way. Um, but anything like that, you're going to get that +4. Your secondary and tertiary get a +2 bonus against those. So again, if somebody tried to flood you out with a giant wave, you get a +2 evasion against it. If you anything, somebody tries to whip up a windstorm against you, you're an air elementalist, +2 or +4 against it. It's basically you're just able you gain the ability to resist those elements as you channel them through your body. Again, it is GM fiat, so the GM can say that bonus does not apply, but it does apply to most situations and should apply to most situations. So like a fire elementalist can run into a burning building with less risk to himself. A earth elementalist can survive a rock fall easier than somebody who's not trained in earth elementalism. So there is that as well. Basic equipment for these guys. They do require for each element a particular piece of equipment that you must purchase that you have to have when you cast those spells. Otherwise, it doubles the spell point cost of those spells of that element. Again, there's a table here. I'm not going to cut it right now. Just know it's very clean cut. So like the Earth Elementalist has to have a vine root staff that costs 5 Florians, which is the standard currency in Dragon Warriors. To buy, you need a vine root staff. The most expensive thing that you're going to have to buy is your air elemental equipment, which is an Acolian Heart, which is 10 gold crowns, which is about 20, I believe it's 100 Florians, because I believe it's a 10-to-1 system. The Orb of Darkness that you need for Darkness Elementalist cannot be purchased. It must be given to you by another Darkness Elementalist. So it's pretty simple. You may want to take this into account when creating your Elementalist, what elements you're playing with. Because you may not be able to cast good spells of, say, Air Elementalist quality until you're able to obtain that part. Because it's just too expensive, magic point-wise. Last thing to go through, Darkness Elementalist. So they have a Gaius, however you say that word. If you're from Ireland or Welsh ancestry, please tell me how you say that, because I have no clue. I've never actually known how to say that word. They are like other elements. They do get 2 other elements, but they can literally choose any other element other than darkness, which is a little bit different. But when they cast spells of different elements, they are touched by the darkness element. They tend to be more potent when they're cast by Darkness Elementalists. Downside to Darkness Elementalists, as mentioned before, is they are not welcome in polite society. So if you are a Darkness Elementalist, you tend to hide it. It will come out in the wash. People will find out because your spells are more potent, things like that. Those degrees of changes are covered by the individual spells in the book. If you're curious about them, you can go to the Magic chapter, look the spells chapter up, and look at the individual elemental spells. They do go into those. But know that Darkness Elementalists are slightly more powerful Elementalists overall. I figured you had to be if you were saying you own the original books, man. Yeah, so if you're curious about playing Elementalist, like I said, overall kind of TLDW, Elementalists are more specialized casters that really just play with the elements of the earth uh, and in the world. They they can hit as hard, if not harder, than sorcerers. They're not as general purpose. They tend to be very focused on what their elements do. So they don't necessarily get access to some of the spell types that sorcerers and mystics do and warlocks do. But that being said, the but it being some of their spells are a lot more powerful because they're so hyper focused. But they do have a very specific set of rules around how they play. So keep that in mind if you're thinking I want to join in as an elementalist. They're definitely fun. They're intriguing, and they're definitely one of the more interesting casters in Legend. But just know if you're playing one, be prepared for a couple of things. You're not going to cast a lot of spells early on. You just don't have the mana for it, you don't have the magic for it. And your magic points tend to grow slower than other casters. The second part is keep in mind when choosing your elements, darkness is a bad thing. You do not want to be outed as a darkness caster. So if you want to play a darkness elementalist, make sure it's okay with your GM because they may have a legitimate reason for not letting you play one because it may make the game too difficult because they make your group like unapproachable and stuff like that. And then third, guys, if you're playing one, keep in mind these guys are not fighters. Unlike the warlock, they do not fight. They do not weapon specialize and things like the warlock does. And unlike the sorcerer, they do not have the ability to consistently be pounding out spells throughout the day. They're gonna get a fight. They're gonna blow their load of magic points, and it's gonna be over for them. So keep that in mind as well. But either way, guys, that's the complete Elementalist. Any thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, you guys can leave below. If I've gotten something wrong, please let me know. Otherwise, guys, follow the 3 rules. No ad hominems, no pick fights, no leave me college dissertations. Other than that, guys, we do hope you have fun, and we do hope to see you guys around the game table at some point.